Hello, Asha fans. Back for another episode of Behind the Bench, where we talk to Division I head coaches about their seasons. Today, we have Coach Greg French from Campo Verde. Coach, how are you?
I'm doing very well. And yourself?
Doing good, doing good. Glad to talk to you. And well, I don't think there is maybe a bigger surprise in Division One through at least 5 games than your team, the Coyotes, going
Eh,
3-2 through 5 games. And Coach, I say surprise, I see a smile on your face. Was it a surprise to you about how hot of a start you guys have gotten off to?
I want to say yes, but I also don't want to sound arrogant. I knew kind of like day one from practice. I just knew that we had a different vibe in the locker room this year, and it just right off the bat, it just felt different. These kids are hungry. They're driven. So I had a feeling we were going to have a different showing this year than last.
3-2 so far. Last year was a tough one for the D1 team. You had 2 wins, 17 losses, and 2 ties. But for you personally, did you learn anything from that year that you can take into a year that now has started with more success?
Yeah, it's one of those things where you have your ups and downs. You'll have a solid year, you'll have a not so solid year. And, last year was a real developmental year for us. We had a pretty young squad, especially a young squad playing at that caliber of hockey. The D1 division, it's extremely competitive, it's extremely fast, it's physical, and, we had players that weren't used to it. So it was one of those things where, you know, we we took it for what it was. We took it as a learning curve, and our players learned something from every single game that they played. If it was a strategy, if it was how to replays, how to adapt and overcome. So I think it was everybody learned from last year.
Another transition question. You
Yeah.
mentioned the mindset change in the locker room from last year to this year. Has that been the biggest difference, or have you seen something else that has really impressed you?
Um, I've seen a few things. One is the mind shift for sure. Um, we always try to coach our kids on the mental toughness. Like you're not going to win every game in hockey. You're not going to win at every event in life, and like that's okay. What's more important is what do you do next? How do you respond to it? And these kids, right off the bat, during our evals, we just saw just every single player through the depth of our roster, they had the grit, and we knew that there was something special to it. We just had to figure out how do we make it even more special. So, playing Tetris, if you will, to figure out who's going to work with who, what's going to work, and how. Um, but I think that, and then another thing too, we had a few players just pull our coaches aside, and they told us like, hey, like we're ready, we're good to go, like we're all fired up. And they brought up, one big thing we learned from last year is we didn't spend a lot of time together outside the rink. So this year specifically, I guess from the end of last year to this year, they've been spending a lot of time outside the rink. They've been hanging out. They've been going to events. They've been, texting, calling, whatever teenagers do nowadays. But there's that camaraderie is now on and off the ice versus just on the ice.
And the things off the ice can definitely lead to success on the ice for you guys so far this year. I got one more
Yeah.
question from last year, and it's all about the seniors that you lose. Something that happens in high school, you lose your seniors, freshmen come in. It's a consistent transition, but you lost a couple seniors, not a ton, between Parker Rydell, Hayden Heinrichs, and others. What did those seniors kind of mean to your squad and seeing them leave? What are you going to miss most about them?
It's a bittersweet moment. Like selfishly, I want to keep them around for as long as possible, but I also don't want, fifth, sixth, seventh year seniors in high school. Like, I want them to move on with their life. And honestly, I think at that point, like, Parker Rydell wasn't part of the program all 4 years, which is fine. I got to spend a lot of time with, Ryan Caputo, Hayden Heinrich. So I think it's building those relationships and then knowing like the goofiness or the the laughter that they bring or their personalities that they bring to the rink every time. Like, I miss those. I miss walking to the rink and knowing I'm guaranteed gonna laugh when I run into Brian Caputo or Hayden Heinrich. So it's you miss those little personalities, the soft touches.
And those guys are going to leave a big legacy within the Campo Verde program. I'm going to give you a stat here, and I want to kind of see your reaction to it. Between last year and this year, you're through 5 games, you're through a fourth of the regular season, and you're almost halfway to how many goals you already scored from last year. What has been the biggest difference? What has been the thing that has catapulted your offense to so much success so far this year?
That's a very good question. This is something we hit the ground running right off the bat. Is Yeah, I don't remember what player said it. I don't remember which one of our players off which team, but somebody at evals was talking about they were just talking about the NHL season that just finished. So they were talking Connor McDavid versus Kucherov versus Austin Matthews and who's the better player and why. And, so something just kind of sparked. And I asked him, I was like, because they brought up Matthews, obviously being from Arizona is a major pull and then helping to grow hockey here. So I asked him, I was like, what makes Austin Matthews such a great player? And like, well, he scores a lot of goals. So I asked him, like, how does he score a lot of goals? And so I asked him an interesting stat. I was like, how many shots on net did he have last year? And like they had no clue. And I was like, well, go look that up and come back and tell me. So they came back and they're like, he had over 300 shots on net. And I was like, so are you guys understanding the correlation? Leads the league in goals, leads the league in shots on net. Like, got to shoot the puck. So I think one of the big things was starting the conversation on, you know, how do we score more goals from what areas? Like in the D1 division, these goalies are good. Like you're not going to score from the wall. You're not going to score from the blue line on a clean shot. Like you have to get it in a prime position in order to have a chance of scoring. I think that's one thing we've been drilling from day one is how do we get the puck closer to the net in that prime position to shoot from.
So far this year, your leading goal scorer is Brandon Brown, 5 goals in the first 4 games for you guys. What has he meant to your offense so far? What does he do so well?
You know, he's a rock of the program. He's had his struggles over the past few years with injuries and the perseverance that comes with that. But I think from him is he can, he's not a captain this year, but that doesn't mean he's not a leader. I think when he talks, people instantly stop and they listen to what he has to say based off the work ethic, the attitude. He's one that's going to lead by example every time he's out on the ice. Every time in practice, he's the one that's going 100% in drills. He's the one that's doing everything right, asking for feedback. How can I get better? How can we as a line get better? And I think that's one thing that's elevating the rest of our program to play up to a higher standard.
Brown has been great. And you mentioned injuries. One story that you told me, but I want you to tell everybody else about your captain in Joe Kandalo. So what has he been through last year and now this year? He's your captain. He's your senior in his senior year. What is his story and how impressed are you with him so far?
Yeah, Joe, it breaks my heart. Last year, first seeding tournament game, he has a unfortunate mix up. His blade got caught in a rivet on the ice as he was turning. His body went one way, his knee went the other. Tore his ACL, had surgery out all year, didn't play a single game. You know, I think for a teenager, it's very easy to get disconnected and say, you know what, I'm just going to walk away from this and be done, and I'll come back next year. But the second that kid was able to leave the house on his own or get somebody to take him, he was at practices sitting on the bench with his helmet. He was taking notes. He was analyzing. He showed up to every game where he was able to and in town. And, I'll never forget it. I forget, it was maybe like his third or fourth game standing on the bench. And, he hobbles over on his crutches and just kind of gives me an elbow. And he's like, I get it now. It's one of those things like, we're always preaching to players like, hey, like, look for this, look for that. And it's one thing as a player to see that, but for him to now take a step back, for him to come over and say, like, I see it, like, I get it, looking at it from a coach's perspective now, I think that has been, the number one big thing is he's been also helping these younger guys understand, like, hey, look, there's another angle you're not seeing that I watched all last year. And I think helping him having those conversations, helping our team grow and become better. But, ultimately from a leadership perspective, I chose him to be captain because he didn't quit. He didn't walk away. Like he was there motivating, even in a tough season, he was there motivating people. And, it's a guy that wanted to be in the ice so badly, but couldn't. And he's given everything he's got every time he shows up. So it's true leadership.
That's a really inspirational story for your captain. And I know he's been leading very well so far through those
Yeah.
5 games. Who else offensively has really impressed you from your team that has really been, setting up or putting the puck in the back of the net?
Oh, Lucas Cernenka has been a great one. He's a driving force. I wish I had half the energy that kid has. Like it's unbelievable. He's just nonstop, always on the go. Same thing, Smitty or Aiden Smith. Those two kids, we send them loose and let them go, and they're on fire. And I think that's also a thing too when we're in a dull moment or make a bad play, we put one of them on the ice and just their hustle and their grind gets everybody on the bench saying, "Whoa, like all right, like these guys have another gear. Let me find mine." And play up to them. So I think those two guys, a few other guys, Max Snyder, who has been great with our program, has come up from JV to D3 and is now on the D1 roster. And he's finding his path and his way, and he's one of the guys that's always going to play cool, calm, and collected, and work hard and grind through it and get the job done. So I think those are some guys that are going to end up having a real strong second half of the season.
Your offense has been the name of your game so far through the first fourth of the season. But let's go to your defense. And
Yeah.
I know you guys have a certain way of how you like to subscribe to your way of thinking defensively. Can you kind of take us through that in terms of the quality of chances and what you teach and preach to your team?
Yeah, so this year is tough. We didn't have six defensemen that registered, which is fine. We really had four defensemen, so we're taking two forwards that have a defensive mindset and defensive game, and we're dropping them back. We also have our D3 call-ups that we're using to kind of fill in as needed. But one big thing we've been coaching is the scoring opportunities, if you will, from a grade A perspective or a grade B perspective. A grade A is you draw a box that goes from the goal line straight through the face-off dots to the top of the circles and all the way across. Like everything inside of that box is grade A. Like that's a prime scoring location and chance. Grade B is outside of that. Like we expect our goalies to stop everything on the grade B shots at the clean shot, like non-tipped, non-deflected. But grade A, our responsibility is everybody should be back checking into that grade A zone as quickly as possible to eliminate scoring chances. We should be, getting the puck from grade A to grade B into neutral zone as quickly as possible and in a matter of just 1, 2, 3. The longer it stays in grade A, we're leaving our goalie out to dry because there's a lot of quick passes and quick shots that can happen there very, very quickly, and it's a dangerous position to allow another team to shoot from. And there's a lot of teams that are really good, like Pinnacle. We played Pinnacle, and they're really good at all collapsing in that zone. And I think when we played them, that was a big moment for our team to realize, like, okay, Pinnacle got there. I need to get there even faster so I can at least prevent them from getting a shot off there. And that's been a huge developmental step for us this year and really focusing on that defensive mindset.
Eliminating those grade A's, pushing everything to grade B's and out to the neutral zone. Let's talk about name-wise on your defensive core. Justin Caputo, of course, brother of Ryan, Jude
Yep.
Warden. Who else has been good for you guys defensively?
Yeah, the Ewart brothers. Dylan Ewart he was on D1 last year. He's our go-to guy. Like he's always going to be our cool, calm, and collected. I know he's going to play a solid game if I put him out there. He's my go-to. If we need a reset, I'm looking to him. And then his brother Davin, um, it's his first year at D1. He was a D3 last year as a call-up. He's made a great transition to the D1 game. He's another up-and-coming major defenseman for us. Gavin Helvik is new this year. He's technically a forward, but can play defense, so he's being a great team player along with Carter Williams to drop back for D. But honestly, like I don't have one D that's like our top guy. Like they're all pretty rock solid. I think the biggest story we have is probably Jude Warden, who went from his first year on Campo at JV, and the kid he busted his tail. He worked hard. He has tons of questions, and every time he's not doing a drill, you see him practicing something that we just went over. And he made the jump from JV to D1, and this is his second year on D1 this year, and he's really finding his own and finding his groove. And I think between him, Justin, and Dylan as our senior guys on D1 or the veteran guys on D1, like they're leading by example for sure.
I asked this to a lot of coaches, like you mentioned, that JV to D1 jump, and that's almost unheard of. But for you guys with the three teams, D3, JV, and D1, what are the biggest differences that you tell players from D3 to D1 in terms of the D1 game?
Time. It's it's one of my favorite. It's one of my favorite and least favorite conversations to have with players is while they like to stick handle and do a lot of fancy moves, at the D1 level, you don't have the time that you think you have because it's so much faster. we just had a conversation after our last game with Centennial. And I asked them, I was like, guys, go back and watch the last Stanley Cup game of the NHL season last year. Every time the puck hits a player stick, I want you to count 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000, etc., and see the average time of how long they hold on to a puck. I was like, they don't hold on to it very long because as soon as it gets there, a defenseman is immediately attacking pressure. Like at the D1 level, you don't have that much time, so you have to be thinking faster than you're moving.
And that's a lesson that all players have to learn, and especially those JV D3, D2 players out there. Make sure to
Yeah.
think about that. When you get the puck, you almost have to know where you're going with it next. Let's talk about
Yeah.
your goaltending. And it's
Yes.
been an interesting one over the past couple of years. You've had a couple goalies rotate in and out. Now you have a number one guy, and it's Landon Toe. He's your starter. He's your guy. First time for him being that starter. So how was it? And how was it for him getting that news? He's the guy, throughout the D1 season, he's going to have the net. How was it telling him that news, and how did he earn it?
Oh man, it was like delivering Christmas Day. It
Mhm.
was he lit up, when I pulled him aside and I told him these are my expectations and we talked with D1 and I pulled him aside and afterwards as a team and told him like, hey, you've busted your butt last year. You've proved your way and over the summer I know he put a lot of additional time and work and energy and effort into it. It's showing, it's paying off. But also every time that kid walks into the rink, it's ear to ear smile. He gets scored on in practice, ear to ear smile. Like he is just always happy, always smiling, and he's truly earned it. So telling him that, hey, like we're making you our rock this year to lean on to get us through this, like he accepted it full heart and has run with it and has definitely earned his title as, the D1 starter.
So, Coach, we've gone through your offense, your defense, and your goaltending, and you look at your first 5 games, 3-2, up there in the top 4 of Division I standings. How do you see, and what are realistic expectations for you guys going through the final 15? Where do you kind of see this team ending up in terms of the standings?
That's a tough question to answer. There's a lot of good teams in the D1 division. Obviously, you have your Notre Dame, your Pinnacle. You haven't played Mountain Ridge yet, but I've watched some of their games. They look very, very good. Centennial was good. I mean, honestly, like I don't think there's a bad team in D1. It's tough to say, oh, I see us here, I see us there. I think at the end of the day, my biggest thing is, are the kids having fun every time they show up to the rink? Are they getting 1% better tomorrow than they were today? And if the answer is yes, I don't care where we fall in the standings. Like, my kids got to want it. I'll give them everything in the world to have them be successful. But like, I also want to teach them some independence. So if they want to be number one, like, I'll give you the tools to get there. If you guys just want to have fun and learn more skills and develop and, be competitive, great. Like winning is cool and it's great. It's fun. It's so hard to say, oh, I see us here. I think we'll be better than last year. I would like to see us finish in the middle of the pack and at least a 50-50 split on win-loss. Um, I our big thing is we want to capitalize one on Pinnacle. Like that's always been one team we could just never beat. We've always been close. Like I collectively as a team, like they want that one bad this year. So whatever they got to do to at least get that one, it's a win for them.
Hey, it's always tough going against the top teams. You guys faced them last year in the play-in round, almost took them down in a huge upset, and you faced them once this year, and you'll face them again one more time in the
Yep.
regular season. Coach, we thank you so much for the time. That's another episode of Behind the Bench, and we'll be back for another episode next week.
Thanks, Dylan.